You've done this before. You promised yourself you'd change, that this time would be different, that you'd make the calls, send the letter, start the business, stop putting it off. And then you didn't, not because you're weak, not because you don't want it, not because you lack discipline, but because there is a war happening inside you right now, at this very moment. A war that started before you were old enough to understand it, and a war you've been losing. Today you're going to find out why, and how to win. But first, let me introduce you to someone. Picture a ship. Up on the deck, there's a captain, smart, driven. He studies the map, picks a destination, and shouts his orders with conviction. Full speed ahead. Set course for the golden shores. Taken fullest is fixed in Tyrrell's full seer. Full speed ahead. Set course for the golden shores. Keep full for socius piers. Cardinales. Down below, in the engine room, there's a crew, 1,000 men working in perfect unison, controlling every engine, every gear, every movement of that ship. They receive the captain's orders, and they laugh, because they have their own orders, older orders carved in stone long ago. Never take risks. Stay where it's safe. You're not worthy of great things. Remember the last time you tried, you sank. And so, while the captain screams, all ahead full, up on the bridge, the crew, quietly and without hesitation, reverses the engines down below. The ship doesn't move, or worse, it drifts backward. That ship is you. The captain is your conscious mind. It's the part of you that read the right book, heard the right sermon, attended the right talk, and decided, this week I change. The crew is your deeper mind, and it is 1,000,000 times more powerful than the captain. The great masters have known this for centuries. Your willpower, that voice of reason on the bridge, governs only a fraction of what you actually do. The rest runs on its own, deeper, older program. A program installed long before you had the wisdom to question it. And that's what you've been fighting with, a fraction of your own power, while the rest works silently against you. Think about every time you promised to change and didn't. That wasn't weakness, that was the crew winning. Every single time. But here's the good news, the only good news that matters. The crew is not your enemy, it's your most powerful ally. The problem isn't the crew. The problem is the orders they were given. And orders can be changed. To change the orders, you first need to understand where they came from. Close your eyes for a second. Picture a 5-year-old child. He runs to his father holding a drawing, an incredible fortress full of color and detail. He's beaming with pride. His father, exhausted after a long day at work, glances at it for 2 seconds and says, "That's nice, son, but drawing doesn't pay the bills. Study something useful." The father didn't mean to hurt him. He wanted to protect him. But in that boy's engine room, the crew received a command. Clear, direct, final. Creativity has no value. Logic is safe. Dreams are dangerous. A few years later, the same child wakes up in the middle of the night to the sound of his parents arguing. He doesn't understand the words, but he feels the terror in the air. And the crew receives another command. Money causes pain. Money destroys families. Money is dangerous. Now picture that same child as a grown man. Brilliant, capable, but every time he tries to charge what he's worth, his hand trembles. Every time he tries to grow his business, an inexplicable fear appears. Every time money starts flowing in for real, something goes wrong. It's not bad luck, it's not the market, it's not the economy, it's the crew faithfully executing orders written in a world that no longer exists. This is not about blaming your parents. They did the best they could with what they had. This is about understanding the code, because you can't rewrite code you can't see. And here's what makes this even harder. Most of these orders didn't come from dramatic moments. They weren't obvious traumas, they were whispers, a disapproving glance, an offhand that's not for people like us, a laugh when you shared your dream. The deeper mind doesn't distinguish between a wound and a passing remark. It records everything with the same relentless precision and turns it into operating instructions. Your current operating instructions were written by other people about a version of you that no longer exists. It's time to write your own. Let me tell you about Walter. Walter was a salesman, a good one. Every month he'd get close to his quota, but never really blow past it. Every year he'd promise himself he'd double his income. Every year he'd end up in almost exactly the same place. So he started waking up earlier, working longer hours, making more calls, pushing himself past every reasonable limit. The first week was great. The second week started to crack. He started forgetting important appointments. A back pain appeared out of nowhere, making it almost impossible to sit at his desk for long. He found himself in pointless arguments with colleagues, draining every drop of mental energy he had. The procrastination came back worse than ever. Instead of making the next call, he'd sit there staring out the window. Walter hated himself for it. I'm weak. I have no discipline. I have no character. He was wrong. Walter's deeper mind had an order burned in from childhood, watching his father work himself to the bone. Work has to equal exhaustion. Suffering means deserving. When Walter started becoming more efficient, when the sales started coming more easily, the crew went on high alert. The ease was a violation of the code. So they created the symptoms, the back pain, the forgetfulness, the arguments, the paralysis, not to destroy him, to protect him from violating the only code they knew. Walter wasn't fighting laziness. He was fighting himself, and that is a war no one wins by force. The solution for Walter wasn't to try harder, it was to stop, to go down to the engine room, to look the crew in the eye and hand them a new set of orders. A code that said, I am so valuable that prosperity flows to me with ease and joy. My wealth is a reflection of who I am, not of how much I suffer. The back pain vanished. The procrastination was replaced by inspired action. He started working fewer hours, and his income tripled. The war was over, not because he got stronger, because he stopped fighting himself. If what you're hearing makes sense in your body, not just your head, that's the crew recognizing the truth. Subscribe right now. In the next video, I'll show you exactly how to rewrite those orders, not the theory, the precise method, step by step. Here's the mistake that destroys most people who try to change. They try to convince the deeper mind using the language of the conscious mind. Logic, reason, willpower. But the crew doesn't speak that language. To them, logic is noise. Arguments are static. Willpower is a temporary inconvenience. The crew speaks two languages, only two, and you need to become fluent in both. First language, feeling. The deeper mind doesn't care what you think. It cares what you feel. A declaration repeated without emotion is just noise. The same declaration infused with the real sensation of already having arrived. That is a direct order to the engine room. When you worry, you're thinking, what if I fail? And loading it with genuine fear. You're speaking the crew's language perfectly, and they respond, aye, Captain, preparing for failure. The opposite is equally true. When you can generate the real feeling of security and prosperity before it exists in the physical world, you're issuing an equally powerful command, and the crew responds. Destination received, adjusting all systems. Second language. Vivid imagery. The deeper mind thinks in pictures, not words. Saying, "I want to be wealthy," is an abstract concept. It doesn't process that. You need to paint a picture. A short, vivid, sensory scene. Not an idea, an experience. A brief motion picture of your desire already fulfilled. The crew receives pictures. Pictures with colors, textures, sounds, and above all, emotions. The more real the picture, the more powerful the new order. The greatest performers of every age have known this. Before the curtain rises, before the first note is played, before the opening bell sounds, the outcome is already decided in the theater of the mind. Your prosperity is no different. Declaring a truce with your own mind requires method, not intention. Method. Here are the three tools that work, not because they're beautiful, because they speak the right language. Tool 1, the incantation of identity. This is not a simple affirmation. An affirmation is the captain shouting from the bridge. An incantation is the captain walking down to the engine room and singing the new anthem with conviction until the crew adopts it as their own. The formula is simple. I am, not I want to be, not I will be. I am, declared with the authority of someone issuing a decree, not asking a favor. I am the consciousness of prosperity. Abundance flows to me with ease because I am inherently worthy. Say it out loud, in the morning, before the world comes in, at night, as your last thought before sleep. Repetition with feeling is what installs the new code. Tool 2 means the revision of the past. Every memory of humiliation, rejection, or failure is an anchor holding the old orders in place. You cannot erase those memories, but you can strip them of their power. Every evening, choose one memory where you backed down, made yourself small, accepted less than you deserved, and rewrite it. In your imagination, see yourself acting from your new state. See yourself stating your value calmly. See yourself receiving the yes. Feel the peace of a man whose worth is not in question. You're not denying history. You're withdrawing the energy that still feeds the old code. Tool 3, the vote of confidence. The crew is loyal but cautious. It needs evidence in the physical world that the new direction is real. Small, deliberate actions are that evidence. This isn't about pretending you have what you don't. It's about acting in small things, like the man you've already decided to become. I once knew a woman whose vote of confidence was walking into a fine shop and buying herself a small bouquet of fresh flowers, something she considered an extravagance. As she placed them on her desk, she held in her heart the feeling of deserving beauty. That very afternoon, a former client she hadn't heard from in over a year sent word of a new engagement worth more than she'd earned in the previous month. Coincidence? Or the law instantly honoring her first credible vote in a new reality? Let me tell you about Thomas. Thomas was a baker, a master of his craft, but his business was always teetering on the edge of collapse. His deeper mind was running a code passed down from his grandfather, a man who had lived through seasons of severe scarcity. There's never enough, hoard everything. The hard times are always around the corner. That code showed up as a constant, exhausting internal war. He baked magnificent bread, but used inferior ingredients out of fear of spending, compromising the very quality that could have saved him. He dreamed of expanding, but refused to bring on help, convinced he couldn't afford it, driving himself to the edge of ruin. Thomas began the work of unification. His nightly picture wasn't of a full till. It was simple, himself handing a warm loaf to a smiling child, and feeling, deeply and completely, the sensation of abundance and generosity. His incantation, whispered every morning as he kneaded the dough. I am a source of nourishment and joy for my community. My supply is infinite because my source is infinite. And his vote of confidence was the most terrifying of all. He discarded the inferior flour and purchased the finest grain he could find. The change wasn't instant, but it was decisive. The quality of his bread was transformed. Customers noticed. Word spread through the town. Thomas took on a young apprentice, not out of desperation, but out of a desire to share the craft he loved. The apprentice brought fresh energy and new ideas. The bakery flourished. And in the final act that shattered the scarcity code once and for all, Thomas began setting aside his day's remaining bread for the families in need at the end of his street. The man who had been told there was never enough was now giving freely. And the more he gave, the more returned to him. Thomas didn't just become a prosperous baker. He became a pillar of his community. The internal war was over, and a united house, captain and crew moving as one, is unbreakable. The story of Thomas, of Walter, of the child who ran to his father with a drawing. It's your story. The war between your conscious desires and your deeper programming is the greatest drama of your life. And for too long, you've been fighting it the wrong way, trying to force the captain to shout louder. That ends today. You have the layout of the ship. You know the 2 languages of the crew. You have the 3 tools. What comes next isn't brute effort. It's diplomacy. It's not force. It's precision. Going down to the engine room, not with anger, but with compassion. Looking at the crew with patience, and handing them, persistently and lovingly, a new set of orders. When the captain and the crew sail together with a single purpose and a single destination, the ship becomes unstoppable. The winds and the seas seem to conspire in your favor, and the journey to the golden shores of your deepest desires is not a struggle. It is a magnificent, inevitable unfolding. I am Charles Fillmore, and this is the Fillmore Key.